and welcome to Five Out, a Ball Knowers podcast. Hold on. Let's see, when is this? Okay, we're live. Welcome to Five Out, Ball Knowers podcast. My name is Graham Dinas. I'm going to be running the point today, and I think I'm doing a solo show. It's going to be a little different than it is with other people, obviously, but I'm just going to kind of give a quick run through of some of the important stories in the world of sports this week, and then I'm probably going to spend the majority of this video trying to name where every single NBA player played their college basketball. So look forward to that. As always, as I mentioned at the top of every video, links are in the description to our Instagram, which is where we post whenever we're going live, and then Twitter, our Twitter link or X is down in the description as well. That is where we kind of give a rundown of what the show is going to be. So make sure to follow us on both of those platforms, as well as subscribing to the YouTube channel and leaving a like on this video. And then obviously 5outpod.com is kind of your hub for all of our information. Austin's still writing blogs on there. So make sure to check that out. That link is at the very top of the description. But without any further ado, I'm just going to get right into it. The biggest story of the week, I think, it resides in college football, and it's Lane Kiffin deciding to leave Ole Miss for LSU. In a way, I think everyone kind of saw it coming, but we're in various stages of denial. I know Ole Miss people didn't think he was going anywhere. But I think it's really just kind of a microcosm for the state of the college football calendar year and how everything's kind of out of place with signing day and with the transfer portal window opening and coaching searches happening during the season. Lane Kiffin's leaving a team at Ole Miss that is making a playoff and will compete for a national title for the first time in their school's history to go to a different school where he might be able to do the same thing. It's kind of a backwards way of thinking about it, but I think people understand that the long-term outlook on LSU is probably greater than it is for Ole Miss. But it's just an interesting story. My favorite part of it was on Saturday. You have Lane holding Marty Smith captive in the Ole Miss practice facility. He was being interviewed by ESPN pretty much all day, um, probably every half hour, and he couldn't leave because Lane kept him there for I'm going to say 16 hours consecutively. So that was really funny. That was my biggest takeaway from that. But Ole Miss hires their defensive coordinator to take over for the rest of the season and for at least for next season as well, because he is not just the interim coach. They hired him full time as a head coach, which I'm wondering if that's kind of a combination of we're too late to the party for firing our coach, and so we're just going to take this guy and give him a chance, and also um, we don't want the committee to maybe see weakness. We're just going to promote this guy. This was our plan all along, kind of mindset. And the committee took that into account, I think. They kept them at number 6 despite losing Lane. And then the offensive coordinator, Charlie Weiss Jr., stayed as well. So, curious to see what Ole Miss does in the playoff, but they're off this week, and I'll get into some of the games that are happening today. The other biggest story in college football this week is Matt Campbell is finally the guy that takes the Penn State job after they, whiffed on the field goal like Lucy pulled the football on Charlie Brown over and over again. This is essentially what every coach was doing to Penn State for the past 2 months. They fire James Franklin early, and they think they can get a head start on the coaching search, and ends up, they're the last team to make a move. But I think all things considered, getting Matt Campbell to be that guy is a huge success at this point in the coaching carousel. I think he is on par with the level of coaches that they were trying to land anyway. And, they only semi-embarrassed themselves on a national stage this whole year. which reminds me that we will be having our final Flaming Car Crash Power Rankings on this show next week. So make sure you tune in for that. Like give a little plug for that. Um, but yeah, they're losing all their recruits to Virginia Tech and James Franklin. And so it hadn't been a good couple of weeks for Penn State, but I think that Matt Campbell could possibly be the guy. So I think all things considered a good hire. Um, but I guess we'll see in the future whether or not it is. Let's see. The next thing I want to talk about, again, just really breezing through all of this stuff since I'm not asking anyone else's opinion on it. Um, Taking a look at the penultimate college football playoff rankings by the committee. And what I want to do is I want to compare them. If I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen now. Comparing them to, this is kind of my source for how good did the committee do. Comparing them to what the BCS would look like. And so yeah, your BCS rankings are here on the left. The CFP committee's on the right. A lot of similarities, I would say, in the top six. Obviously, a little lower on Texas Tech. The numbers are a little lower on Texas Tech than the committee. But really, the only difference that matters is this 9 through 12 range, where the BCS still favors Notre Dame, and we saw Notre Dame jump Alabama in the committee, or Alabama jumped Notre Dame, excuse me, in the committee's rankings this week, which I find to be fairly, intriguing. I think that is the committee's way of essentially confirming that Alabama gets in, barring just a blowout loss to Georgia today. I think Alabama's pretty safely in. And then if BYU happens to be a bid stealer and beat Texas Tech today, the committee would feel better about leaving Notre Dame out than Alabama, which I don't necessarily agree with, but that is, I think, the thought process of the committee. Tulane is, I think, essentially a lock to make the playoff now, regardless of what happens in the ACC championship game today between Virginia and Duke. But the BCS rankings here apparently would have given it to, well, who knows what it's going to be this week, but they had James Madison ahead of Tulane in their rankings, the computer. So, again, James Madison is rooting hard for Duke to beat Virginia today because with that output, or without an outcome, James Madison sneaks in and we get James Madison and Tulane in the playoff and no ACC teams, which I find to be pretty interesting. But yeah, I think outside of that, the CFP rankings are pretty good. The committee, week in, week out, does a pretty good job, I would say, overall. But let's just go and take a look at the games today and talk about those. Tulane really did a good job last night, I will say, of keeping North Texas at arm's length throughout the game. They kind of opened it up early, and North Texas worked their way back into the game. But Tulane, you can see here, 13-point win. JMU did the same thing with Troy. But Tulane, against a better opponent in North Texas, was able to lock in a spot in the playoff. These are the games that we need to talk about today, with some of the bigger stakes coming here at 11 in a couple hours. We've got Texas Tech and BYU playing in Dallas, or I guess Arlington at Jerry World. I think Texas Tech is in regardless. It would take a really bad loss for the committee, I think, to jump Alabama and Notre Dame ahead of them. So I think Texas Tech's probably safe. BYU obviously needs this one if they want to make the playoff. And then at 3, we've got Bama, Georgia. Georgia needs to win this to lock in a bye, I'm going to say. But I think they'd probably be safe regardless, again, barring a blowout. I don't think that the committee is going to have Oregon or Ole Miss jump Georgia with a reasonable loss, unless if they feel the need to have Alabama jump them for sweeping them. That's the only team that would maybe be able to do that. And yeah, I think Alabama's in regardless, barring again, like I said, like a blowout loss. I think they will be in the college football playoff. And we got Ohio State, Indiana. They're playing for the number one spot in the playoff. The other team is probably going to fall no lower than 4, if I had to guess. So, so that game, obviously, like when you have a 1 versus 2 game, it's very exciting. You would think a lot of people are talking about how the stakes of this game are limited compared to what it would have been in the past. I think if we would have had a 1 versus 2 in a Big Ten title game in the 4-team playoff, I still think both teams would have got in. We had a year, what was that, 2022, 2 or 3 years ago, where Ohio State didn't even play in the Big Ten championship game and they still got in. So that's the stakes for that one. And then realistically, for the playoff outlook, I think this Duke Virginia game is the most important game. Right, they're playing each other at 7 tonight. Virginia's in with a win, and then if Duke wins, then JMU is probably going to steal that bid. Which I still like the 5-team, the 5 automatic bids personally, but I'm sure. Let's see, Austin. Notre Dame's 2 ranked wins are against USC and Pitt and lost their big games. Yeah, Austin wants Miami in. I obviously Miami does have the head-to-head against Notre Dame, but you take a look at their games recently. You know, in the last 10 games of the season, the Notre Dame team is significantly better than Miami. Right, Miami's taken worse losses than Notre Dame, but obviously has a better win. So that's going to be an argument that the committee's going to have to make as well. If Notre Dame is the last team in and BYU loses and Miami is the first team out, they are going to have to say that the gap between the other metrics that they use is wide enough in favor of Notre Dame to overturn the head-to-head result that happened back in August or early September, whenever that game was played. That's another thing that bothers me about college football playoff discourse is you have people who talk about how, for the Texas versus Vanderbilt ranking, that head-to-head matters and Texas is ahead of Vandy, but for Notre Dame and Miami, it doesn't matter apparently because Notre Dame is ahead of Miami even though they lost. The difference is, the committee can value different metrics at different weights and levels of importance. And maybe the head-to-head results in one argument are enough to outweigh the differences in other metrics or other, variables that the committee considers. Maybe the head-to-head's enough to propel a team ahead of another. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the gap is wider. You can't blame the committee for having, using different like logic, different trains of thought on different rankings because they're probably like essentially the committee is being consistent, or you can make the argument that the committee is being consistent. I don't actually know what's going on inside the room. But you can make the argument that the committee is being consistent and that the weight of certain metrics is just more important than others. And so head to head isn't always enough to be like the one factor that determines the difference between two teams. I hate that argument. That really bothers me. But yeah, I think that's probably all for college football talk. Like I mentioned, Flaming Car Crash Power Rankings coming next week for the finale, the finality of that series. We will finish that off. I also want to. I'm just gonna pull up the NFL schedule because I felt like Austin and I last week talked really in depth about some of the games this week that have the most importance. I'm gonna see if there's anything last week that I need to talk about that we missed. Houston beating Indy was kind of important. The Texans are firmly in the playoff hunt now, and Indianapolis, who we thought was safe, They've lost their lead in the division to Jacksonville. They're playing tomorrow. Um, and then I guess, yeah, it's kind of important to mention that the Carolina Panthers beat the Rams last week. I feel like the Rams were kind of running away with, at least in my mind, the best team in the league title. And then Carolina pulls an upset on them. Carolina, I'd heard a point somewhere that how you play against Carolina is not a good measuring stick for how good you are. The real measuring stick is how good Carolina plays against you, right? If Carolina plays well against you, then you're a good team. If they play poorly against you, you're a bad team. They play to whatever level of competition they're playing against. And I find that argument to be really funny, but fairly true through 13 weeks of the season. They are a very confusing ball club. And I'm happy that they're in the playoff hunt because they're at least challenging in the NFC South, which is one of the weaker divisions in football. And then Thursday night, we saw Detroit beat Dallas 44-30 in what was kind of a must-win for them. So, want to give props to the Lions for winning that one and keeping themselves in the hunt in the NFC North. Dallas has a lot of work to do, but a very easy schedule to finish out the year. Yeah, Indy and Jacksonville are playing at noon this week. That's a very important game for the AFC South. And then also Pittsburgh and Baltimore, who are tied atop the AFC North. They play in Baltimore this week. And obviously, Bears and Packers on Sunday. Super intriguing game for a multitude of reasons. And then on Sunday night, we've got Houston and Kansas City, which Austin and I talked about at length last week. So you can check out that episode if you want to hear about that. I'm going to pull up the standings and just see if there's anything worth noting here. Obviously, the Patriots are on a bye this week, so they have the half-game lead over Denver right now. But yeah, you're seeing Houston and Kansas City on the outside looking in. Kansas City, like we said, really needs to beat Houston because they would need to jump them for that tiebreaker. And then they're still hoping for one of these top six to fall out of the top seven. And Indy is, they're waning down the stretch. Jacksonville, obviously, we think is possibly fraudulent. So those would be the two to keep an eye on. And then the NFC, obviously, the Bears have the 1 seed. Bear down. Big game for the NFC North this week, though, with the Packers. The Lions still on the outside looking in. It's unbelievable that the 7 seed in the NFC has 9 wins, and the 1 seed in the NFC has 9 wins. Very tight race going on. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. And then just briefly want to talk a little college ball, college hoops. And I felt like there was a decent amount of good games this week with the SEC ACC Challenge, but the big story coming out of this week for me is that Kentucky basketball is just awful right now. Kentucky is the team that I kind of planted my flag in preseason, and I said I think this team is the favorite to win the title, and they have not shown me anything to believe that that is true through this point in the season. They have 5 wins against Nicholls State, Valparaiso, Eastern Illinois, Loyola Maryland, and Tennessee Tech, which is not necessarily a murderer's row of mid-major talent. It's a lot of pretty poor mid-major teams. And then their 4 losses come at Louisville by 8, which Louisville's a top 25 team in America. Neutral site, Michigan State lost. Michigan State looks like they're going to be a top 10 team. At home against North Carolina, which is alarming. But North Carolina, again, another top 25 team. And then neutral site game in Nashville against Gonzaga last night, where they get beat by 35 points. And Gonzaga's good, but like tournament teams aren't getting beat by 35 points on a neutral court very often. I mean, obviously, that's throwing stones from a glass house as an Illinois fan who watched them get crushed by Duke last year in Madison Square Garden. But this Kentucky team, we've yet to see them beat a quality opponent, and they play Indiana next weekend. They play St. John's the following weekend, and then obviously they're going to have their fair share of chances in the SEC. That's the benefit of playing in a league like that, is that you're going to get those opportunities. But man, I could not be more wrong at this point in the season with my prediction of Kentucky being a championship contender. Now, the one thing that you can, if you're going to put an asterisk on it, I think Jaden Quaintance is probably their best player, and he has not played yet. But a lot of Kentucky's problems, I think, have been on the defensive end, or on the offensive end. And as great as Jaden Quaintance is, he is certainly more of a interior defender. That's his strength. I don't know how much he changes this offense. Otega Owe is supposed to be the guy for this team, and he just hasn't been. And what's really interesting to me is that like Colin Chandler has kind of been the guy for this team. He's just like he was I'm assuming a BYU recruit for Mark Pope that just kind of transferred over last year. But as a sophomore, he averages 12 points. He's certainly been the most exciting player for this team. And obviously, Jalen Lowe has been dealing with injuries as well. He's kind of their only lead guard. But yeah, it's just not happening for this team right now, and I'm curious to see if it will. Some other games, I guess I could talk about Duke, Florida. It was a close game, but I mean Duke is undefeated. They've beat some good teams. I think Florida is probably, after winning the title last year, I think this team is probably looking at maybe a 5 to 7 seed in March with what I've seen so far. I think that's probably their range. UConn played Kansas in Lawrence without Darren Peterson, and UConn got that win. I think UConn could be a 1 seed in the tournament. I think they're going to be at like a 2 or a 3 at the worst. And obviously, I mentioned Carolina and Kentucky playing. Auburn beat Louisville, right? No, Auburn played NC State. Who did Louisville play? They played Arkansas. Arkansas beat Louisville. That's that's a huge result because I think Arkansas was another team that had kind of underperformed to this point. But Cal kind of owns Louisville. He did at Arkansas, or he did at Kentucky for a long time at least. I'm going to scroll through the slate today, just point out some good games. Right at 11 a.m., we've got 2 bangers off the top. We've got Iowa State playing Purdue in Mackey at home for Purdue. That's going to be an awesome game. I think Iowa State's really good, but Purdue is a lot better. I'm curious to see. Let's see, what's the line on that one? Not giving me a line on games today. What are we doing, ESPN? 5.5 for Purdue. That's an interesting. Yeah, I mean, Purdue at Mackey is just kind of a different beast. And they're obviously great. They're still the number 1 team in the country for a good reason. And then we've got Duke at Michigan State, which preseason I don't think would have been the game that you're looking at and thinking this is going to be a spectacular game. But Michigan State just wins. Like Jeremy Fears and what's Cam Ward, not the Titans quarterback, but the freshman power forward. Like Michigan State, Izzo just finds ways to win, and it's kind of infuriating to watch, but that's going to be a great game because Michigan State has some size that could bother Cam Boozer, which that's kind of a note that I would take on that game. What's the line on that one? Duke 1.5 point road favorite. That's interesting. What else we got? Dayton, Virginia, probably 2 tournament teams there. What else we got? Ohio State, Northwestern at 1 in the Big Ten. Those 2 teams are both like bubble teams. That could be an important result down the stretch of the season when you look back in March. Wisconsin, Marquette. Marquette's awful. Marquette's truly bad. That's at 1 on FS1. Boise State, Butler. I don't think Boise's very good, but Butler that's a must-win for Butler. if they're trying to make the tournament. Here we go. Louisville, Indiana on CBS. That one is being played at Gainbridge in Indianapolis. That's technically a neutral site game. Indiana took a bad loss to Minnesota this week, and Louisville took a loss as well. They're both coming off a loss. But Louisville is a significantly better team, so that game intrigues me. We got Rutgers, Michigan. Michigan will win that by about 30. Maryland, Iowa. Seton Hall, K-State is another like bubbly type game. I think Seton Hall came in with very low expectations, and they've been able to outperform those already this season. Shaheen Holloway's done a great job. And then K-State, who I thought was going to be a tournament team, and they drop a home game to Bowling Green last week or earlier this week. Awful loss. So they have very little room for error. They need to pick this one up. Baylor and Memphis. Memphis isn't very good this year. Baylor should take that. Washington, USC. I think USC is a little fraudulent. I know they won in Maui, but I don't love the talent there. I know they're dealing with injuries with Rodney Rice too, and I'm a believer in the Washington Huskies. So that could be an interesting one. Got the Big Five championship with Villanova and Penn. Houston, Florida State. Houston should take that one. Tonight at 7 p.m., this is really what I wanted to get to. Illinois is playing Tennessee in Nashville. Tennessee coming off 2 losses. They got upset by Syracuse earlier this week. And then they lost their last game in Vegas to Kansas. And then you've got Illinois coming off their loss last weekend against UConn. Huge game tonight at 7 on ESPN. I think this is a kind of a litmus test game for Tennessee to be like, is this going to be like a good SEC team, or is this going to be a team that can make an Elite Eight, essentially, is kind of the argument that you would make there. The SEC is super intriguing to me this year after they were just a complete gauntlet last year in hoops. Vanderbilt is the only team right now that's really running away with, like, they have the best resume in the SEC by far. I think that Tennessee and Alabama are kind of in that tier 2, and then maybe Auburn. But this would be a game where they could possibly leap into tier 1. And then we've got St. John's Ole Miss at 7. St. John's should take care of business. Ole Miss hasn't looked great so far. Here we go, 9 p.m. Arizona Auburn as a second leg of the ESPN doubleheader with the Tennessee Illinois game. Arizona has been really good so far. That's a home game for them. They should take care of business there. And then Oklahoma, Arizona State at 9. What else do we have? Tomorrow, on Sunday, we've got a Sunflower Showdown, Mizzou, Kansas. Mizzou kind of owns Kansas the past couple years. I've heard Darren Peterson is going to be back, so I think Darren Peterson plays, they win no matter what. Mizzou scares me. I don't think they're anything great. I think Kansas should win that one. Texas Tech LSU, that could be like a sneaky 8-9 type game. LSU is outperforming this year. Georgetown, UNC. UNC should take care of business. We got Creighton, Nebraska. They play every year. Nebraska should take that one. Shout out to Brendan. That should be a Nebraska win. And then SMU A&M is a sneaky good game as well. SMU looks like they could be a tournament team. But yeah, that's my college basketball preview this weekend. I've been itching to talk college hoops on this show. And so that is that. Okay, I think that's about everything that I wanted to get into. So now I'm going to take the next 25 minutes and we are going to try and name where every single NBA player went to college. And then after that, we'll be done. This is kind of a skill of mine. I was looking through basketball references last night. I was looking at Quentin Post for some reason. He's just a guy that came to mind, and I was like, I didn't know he went to Boston College. And I thought, since I knew I was doing the show by myself, I was like, you know what, I'll just do this. This will be a good way to fill time. So yeah, I would say there's 432 guys on here. My goal is I'm going to say 375 is my goal. You know what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to put this on my main screen. I have a 2-screen setup, and typically I'll have the recording feed on my main screen, and obviously like my prep sheet or whatever, I'll put that up over here. Um, I'm going to switch those so that way I can lock in. All right, here we go. Tyrese Maxey went to Kentucky. So we got double Kansas. As a Kansas guy, I don't really remember Kelly Oubre being anything for Kansas. I don't remember him at all. And then I do remember Embiid. I did not like him at all. Huh, where did Justin Edwards go? This is getting, I've felt that in the years, this is getting increasingly hard for me because even though I watch significantly more college basketball now than I ever have, I watch a lot less NBA basketball. And so there are some of these guys on here that I've just never heard of. Jalen Smith went to Maryland. Javon Carter was on some really good West Virginia teams. Matas was G League. Or to say none? There we go. Okay. None. Arizona, I watched Dalen Terry beat Illinois live. That Arizona team in 22 was so good. Okay. Jeremy Grant went to Syracuse. I have no idea where Toumani Camara went. He plays for Portland. Okay, I'm passing. All right, Klingon went to UConn. You don't have to remind me of that. Wait, did Kamani go to none? Okay, it's always worth a look. Okay, Dan went to Weber State. The Time Lord was so good at A&M. Washington, Scoot Henderson, what a bust. I saw Blake Wesley play live when Notre Dame played Illinois my freshman year. I saw Chris Murray play live. I've never heard of this guy. I'm taking my point, though. Duop Reith went somewhere, I feel like, and I don't know where it is. That name does ring a bell, but I don't know where. Okay, Kevin Porter to USC. Torian Prince, one of the best post-game March Madness interviews ever, when he was talking about, he was explaining to a reporter what a rebound was. I actually own a Bobby Portis Milwaukee Bucks jersey. Let's see. Gary Trent, Ryan Rollins, shout out the Mac. Gary Harris had some funny tweets back in the day. AJ Green, multiple time Larry Bird Award winner in the Valley. No idea where Chris Livingston went. The Thanasis didn't go anywhere. Tyler Smith. Who is Tyler Smith? I'm sorry, Austin. I feel like I should know this guy, but I have no idea where he went to school. But his name rings a bell, but I could be getting him confused with several other players. All right. Max Strus went to DePaul. There we go. USC, Texas. National champion DeAndre Hunter. UCLA, Sam Merrill. Dean Wade went to K-State. Jalen Tyson. I love ripping at Syracuse. I have no idea. Wait, was he a Belmont guy? No. There are a few Belmont guys in the league. His name rings a bell. Larry Nance Jr. went to Wyoming. One of my favorite dunk contest dunks of all time. Craig Porter Jr. I don't know. Proctor went to Duke. Okay. Simons. Is he a G League guy? Yeah. Or OTE. Derek White went to Colorado. Cal. Sam Hauser. Let's see. Is he the Virginia one? Yeah. Boucher went to Oregon. He ended Kansas' season in 2017. That broke my heart. Tatum. Peyton Pritchard also on that team. Hugo Gonzalez. I have no idea. There we go. Baylor Shireman. Unreal South Dakota State Jackrabbit. Pretty good Creighton Blue Jay back in the day. Xavier Tillman. Could have been a national champ. Luka Garza. Josh Minot. Is he a Wake Forest guy? Is he a Georgia Tech guy? I don't know. I honestly thought I'd be doing better so far. Jordan Walsh ended Illinois' season in 23. James Harden, I saw him play live at Arizona State. Brad Beal, Kawhi. Not going to take San Diego State for me. That stinks. John Collins was Wake? Yeah. I get a lot of Wake and Georgia Tech guys mixed up. Same color scheme, same conference, and neither of them have been particularly relevant at any point in the last like 15 years. YKN, unreal shot blocker at Penn State. He was special. Jordan Miller. Is that the Miami Jordan Miller? Yeah. Okay. Cam Christie was the Minnesota brother. He had a nice game at State Farm my junior year. John Morant, shout out Murray State. KCP went to Georgia. Jalen Wells. No, that's. Where did Jalen Wells go to school? I should know that. Michigan State. Santi Aldama go to Santa Clara? Is he the one that went to Loyola, Maryland? There we go. Okay, Edey went to Purdue. I hate Zach Edey. Terrorist. Gonzaga. Brandon Clark was so good at Gonzaga as well. St. Mary's. Conchar. He went to George Washington, I believe. Or not. I really thought he did. Is he a weight guy? Okay, I'm going to have to skip. Cedric Coward. Are they going to count Duke? No. Okay. Wazoo. Omax went to Marquette. Cam Spencer, technically UConn. Vince Williams Jr. Is someone. I don't know where he went. Scottie Pippen. Vandy. Gigi Jackson. South Carolina. Okay. Trae Young, Oklahoma. The Great Barrier Thief. Nah. He went to Vatek. That was the only time Vatek has been good, I feel like, in my lifetime. Was that team with Nickeil Alexander-Walker in 2019. Michigan. Asa Newell went to Georgia. Yeah, there's just no way of knowing. Caleb Houston to Michigan. Okay, Hero, Kentucky. Norman Powell, UCLA. Wiggins, Kentucky. Khalil Ware went to Indiana. Terry, Davion Mitchell, national champion. Jaime Jaquez, one of my favorite basketball players, I'll say, ever. That may be an overstatement. Drew Smith, Pelly Larson went to Arizona. Okay, how are we trending so far? I'm a third of the way down with 128. Okay, I'm just over my projection. I need to pick it up. LaMelo, Duke, Arizona, my bad, Alabama. Miles Bridges. I'm friends with Miles Bridges on PlayStation. That is a fact. There's Alabama. That's again. Josh Green. Was that Arizona? Yeah. Okay. Grant Williams, Batman. He was unbelievable at Tennessee. Pat Connaughton played baseball at Notre Dame, but you know that. Trey Mann, Liam McNeely, UConn. DaQuan Jeffries is really, I have no idea. I think, I want to say like a MAC school or something, but I have no reason to believe that or to back that up. Nick Smith, overrated Arkansas prospect. Creighton, Simon James went to Duke. Shout out Tulane, though. It's where he came from. Colorado. Musa Diabate. That's the Michigan Diabate, correct? There we go. All right, now it's time for the Keontae George, Keyshawn George. Okay. I get them confused. Taylor Hendricks, UCF. Laurie went to Arizona. Walker Kessler went to Auburn. He was so good on that team in 22. UCLA, shout out Slow-Mo. Iowa State, George Niang. I forget who was talking about it, but someone said that George Niang was the best collegiate basketball player they ever saw. As far as like behind closed doors type of guy. Shout out Svi. Bryson Sabah, Isaiah Collier, USC. Okay. Got the whole jazz. You would have lost money if you, I would have lost money. I didn't think I'd be able to name every college on the Utah Jazz. Let's see, a couple LA boys. Keegan Murray was good. Sabonis, Kentucky. Keon Ellis went to USC, right? Or wait, he was an Alabama guy, right? There we go. Saric. Devin Carter was really good at Providence down the stretch. Nick Clifford, that's the Colorado State guy. Is he a rookie or is this year 2? Another multi-time Larry Bird winner, Doug McDermott. Isaac Jones. Is that the Iowa State guy? Who's Isaac Jones? Should I know who Isaac Jones is? Okay, Raynaud went to Stanford. Okay, Brunson. Here we go. Villanova. 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 Yana, Cat, Mitchell Robinson. Are they going to take Western Kentucky? Okay, he was committed there. Yabu, nowhere. Deuce McBride. Shout out Bobby Huggins. West Virginia Mountaineer. Never heard of that guy. Jordan Clarkson went to Mizzou. They're not going to take Mizzou. Tyler Kulik went to Marquette. I'm going to take a none there. Okay, Luca. Austin Reeves. Wichita State transfer. Shout out the Valley. I don't know if Austin Reeves ever played in the Valley. Gonzaga. LeBron. No, I don't even... I'm sorry for thinking about that. Vandy is a UK guy. Gabe Vincent. Crap. He didn't go to San Francisco. Where did Gabe Vincent go? I should know this. Ah, that's going to stink. I know where he went. Jake LaRavia was a great Indiana State Sycamore transfer. Dalton Connect, unreal Northern Colorado transfer. Let's see, Jackson Hayes went to Texas. Bronny James went to USC. They're not going to take Kentucky. He went to Arkansas. Okay. Kyrie. Clay, PJ Washington. Is this interesting? If anyone's watching, I don't know if Austin's even still watching. Leave in the chat if this is interesting or not. It's not letting me scroll. There we go. Okay. Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, Cooper Flagg, Caleb Martin, shout out the Martin twins. Najee Marshall. I have no idea where Najee Marshall went to school. Okay, Max Christie is the Michigan State brother. Jaden Hardy. There we go. Okay. Ohio State. Stanford. Exum. Brandon Williams is someone who exists. Probably. I have no idea, though. Okay. Suggs. Gonzaga. Bain. TCU. Franz. Michigan. Duke. FSU. None. Anthony Black was... That Arkansas team in 23 had far too much talent to be as average as they were. That's right, I forgot we got the Orlando Wolverines here. And Jace Richardson. Colin Castleton is... Okay, Igor went to BYU. This team, this could be a fun one here. Cam Thomas. Shout out to Haywood Highsmith for going to Wheeling Jesuit. I have that in the bag. Georgia. Gonzaga, FSU, Stanford, UNC, Traore's Gonzaga, or not Gonzaga, Georgia, or not. Okay. Clowney's Alabama, Drake Powell's UNC. Nope, different Whitehead. Seraph, none. Michigan. Keon Johnson, is that the Tennessee Keon Johnson? Okay, Jalen Wilson, shout out. Tyrese Martin, Memphis. Clemson. Who's Tyrese Martin? That's disappointing if I... Oh, no. Why can't I think of who Tyrese Martin is? Okay, I'm going to have to move on. I really thought I'd be able to clear out the Nets. That would be far more impressive than the Jazz. Najee's Arizona, Peyton Watson's UCLA, Deron Holmes. Deron Holmes was so good at Dayton. Bruce Brown, Miami, Strother, Gonzaga, Tim Hardaway, Hunter Tyson. That's a Clemson, right? Okay, and then John Pickett. Shout out the Nuggets. That was easy. T.J. McConnell. Is he really starting at point for that team? Neesmith went to Vandy. Will they take Vandy? They will not. Okay, here's your New Mexico State. Isaiah Jackson. I really don't know. It's Isaiah Stewart who went to Washington, right? I don't know where Isaiah Jackson went. Benny Mathurin, I thought, was going to be the truth. That was a miss on my part. Jeez, I could type. Dayton. Jers Walker, Houston. Tony Bradley still in the league? Wow. Here's a Belmont brother. James Wiseman played 3 games for Memphis. Jay Huff, shout out. I saw he had an unbelievable game maybe last week. Shout out to Jay Huff. Okay, what? I need... Okay, that was a much better set of 10 teams than the first 10. Let's lock in here. DeJounte. Was he a Washington guy? Yeah. Okay, Jordan Poole. Trey Murphy III. That's UVA, right? Okay. Herbert Jones. They're going full government Herbert. Kevon Looney's a Pelican. I forgot about that. Here's Sadiq Bey. I thought Derek Quinn would be a bust, and I guess it's probably still too early to call, but I've seen stat lines that would tell me otherwise. Micah Peavy, is that an SDSU guy? Okay, I don't know Micah Peavy. Okay, Caden. State. Jaden Ivey at Purdue. Osar. Tobias Harris, is he the starting 4 for that team? Duran. He gave Chet a run for his money in that tournament game. That was a fun. That was 22. There's Isaiah Stewart. He went to Washington. There we go. Ron Holland. Ronald Holland II. B-Ball Paul. Let's see. Marcus Sasser. Javonte Green. Is that Woo? Where did he go? I should know this. Wow, that stinks. Colby Jones, is that one of the Marquette guys? Colby Jones. I have no idea who Colby Jones is. Bobby Clement went somewhere? Who are these people? This is like a good team, too. Karis Levert. Okay, here we go. IQ went to Kentucky. I would like to get all of the Raptors. This is a team with a lot of guys that I have enjoyed watching over the years. Duke, Kansas, South Carolina. Jacoby Walters, the Baylor guy, right? Yep. Mamu. Garrett Temple still in the league. AJ, okay, I don't know where AJ Lawson went. Did he go to Memphis? I don't know. Who is this guy? Jamal Shed, Houston. Mogbo. I know the name Mogbo. That's really frustrating. Actually, Jameson Battle went to Ohio State. He transferred. Mogbo I should get. It's disappointing. Okay. None. Auburn. Texas. None. Pitt. Florida? Yep. Reed Shepard. Shout out. We've brought him up on the show. Okay, here we go. Here's one of the guys. Akoji. He went to, I think, Georgia Tech. Okay. Not Wake Forest. Tari Eason, LSU. Ohio State. Jeff Green went to Georgetown. J.D. Davison went to Alabama. Bang. Got all the Rockets. Spurs. Okay. Kentucky. Rutgers. UConn. UNC. None. FSU. Kentucky. And Flow State. Gonzaga. Vanderbilt. Baylor. Arizona. Is this the St. John's one? Yep. I know there's another Champaign that went to Pitt. Lindy Waters. Shout out that one girl who had Lindy Waters as her hall pass. Bang. Flow State. Kentucky. None. Ryan Dunn. Oh, man. That's Virginia, right? Mark Williams. Duke. Baylor. Duke. Nick Richards. Kentucky, right? Okay. Jordan Goodwin. I feel like he's an A10 guy. I don't know why. I'm probably wrong. Baylor, national champion. Nigel Hayes back in the league. I love Nigel Hayes back in the day. Villanova. I really liked Oso Ighodaro coming out. Rasheer Fleming. That's a name that I recognize but I haven't heard for a while. Shot in the dark. I really don't know where it's from. Okay. Villanova. Ant went to UGA. They got KD, but we got Jaden McDaniels. Is he a USC guy? No, he was a Washington guy, right? There we go. Orange Julius went to Kentucky. Rudy. Naz Reid. LSU. Ohio State. Kentucky. I hope none. UCLA. Shout out TJ. None. Leonard Miller is okay. I'll take that. Kentucky, Arizona State. Jim Williams went to Santa Clara. Chet went to Gonzaga. iHeart. Alex Caruso, a part of one of the greatest comebacks in the history of college basketball. Isaiah Joe. Where did Isaiah Joe go? Am I on the right track? Is he an Arkansas guy? There we go. Okay. One of the A's in the SEC. Okay, Aaron Wiggins. See the Maryland Wiggins? There we go. Okay, we're back. Arkansas again. Kenrich went to TCU. Usman Jang was a top 10 pick. Cason Wallace went to Kentucky. None. Sorber was really good at Georgetown last year. AJ Mitchell, I actually don't know. So that's unfortunate. Okay, I hit my quota already, so I'm calling this a win regardless. Now I'd like to get to 400. Moody Mosey. Marquette. Michigan State. Oklahoma. Gigas. Okay. Indiana. Here we go. I would not have gotten this before last night. Bub Carrington. Okay, here we go. I kind of make my money on these bad teams, low key. I have a lot of young guys that I've watched recently and know exactly where they came from. So that's kind of a cheat code for me. Shout out Trill Riley. AJ Johnson at the Duke. AJ Johnson. Who's AJ Johnson? Who am I with? AJ Griffin. Who's AJ Johnson? Keyshawn George. Okay. Yes. Dylan Jones. Should I know Dylan Jones? I definitely should know Dylan Jones. I have no idea where I went to school. Is he a Marquette guy? There's a lot of Marquette guys out there. Anthony Gill went to UVA. Here's Justin is the one that went to Pitt. And then, there we go. Marvin Bagley went to Duke. Okay, 401. I've still got 5 minutes to play around with. Okay, I'll take that. Justin Edwards, Kentucky. Bang. Okay. Sometimes you just gotta... What the heck? What's happening to my time? You guys seeing that? That's going way faster. Tumani Kamara. I actually don't know where he went. I think I ripped none already. Duop Wraith. Tyler Smith. Again, another name that I thought I would have. Jalen Tyson. Is he Clemson? Dude, no, whoops. I don't like how this timer is just kind of flying on me. I'm not a fan of that at all. Josh Minot. Xavier. Dang it. Where did Josh Minot come from? Jalen Wells. Stanford. California. I have no idea. Vince Williams, I've known that in the past and I've forgotten it. Quan Jeffries, same deal. I really thought Isaac Jones was Iowa State. I'm maybe getting him confused. Gabe Vincent. Yeah, okay. I'll take a 403. I'm okay with that. Dayton for Kamara. Okay, Duop Wraith, LSU. Chris Livingston, Kentucky. That kind of rings a bell. Really? Who is Tyler Smith? Jen Tyson went to Cal. Craig Porter went to Wichita. I didn't know that. Okay. Minot went to Memphis. Had that in the bag. Couple Wazoos, right? A lot of Wazoos that I missed. Vince Williams went to VCU. Okay. Is that really where John Conchar went? Are we sure? I'm going to look that up. Because I could have swore he was a George Washington guy. Yeah, Come on, show me. Okay, no, I guess it was a pretty 4-win. Okay, hand up, I'm wrong. Western Texas College. Okay. I could have swore I typed in Washington State on Isaac Jones. Maybe I spelled that wrong. UCSB for Gabe Vincent. I think I did know that. Najee Marshall's Xavier. I knew someone was Xavier. Brandon Williams, Arizona. Doesn't ring a bell. Yeah, Tyrese Martin won a championship at UConn. That's a bad miss. Isaiah Jackson at Kentucky. Okay. PV at Georgetown. Radford. I knew Javante Green was a... I knew I had that one, and I missed it. Colby Jones at Xavier should have had. Um, Good one at SLU. Okay, I probably should add that one too. CSB, Dylan Jones, Weaver State, AJ Johnson, none. Okay, I can live with a 403. That's what, 93%? Average is 60. I can live with that. Okay. So, yeah, I guess that's it. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, link in the description, 5outpod.com. Like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And I would assume myself, and others, hopefully, will see you at the same time next week. Have a good one.